Yeah, welcome back, y'all, to another edition of Everything Football 62. When you think of great linebackers, right? If I say the words Bill George, Chicago Bears, considered the first linebacker or middle linebacker, was in a middle guard position and was told to just drop back, to just stand up and then kind of like drop back in coverage and just stand up and then started making plays. Chicago Bears. Then you go into then you go into that in the 50s. You go into that of Sam Huff, who's on the front of Time magazine, who actually had I think one of the first players that ever had a mic on. Those New York Giant defenses back in the day, in the mid 50s to late 50s, where they brought defense to the forefront of the NFL, and they had the documentary, the Violent World of Sam Huff, that you can probably catch on YouTube now. I actually had a chance to watch it not that long ago. You had that. Then you had guys like Ray Nitschke. Let me go back. You had guys like Joe Schmidt, who played for that of the Detroit Lions, or those defenses of the mid-50s to the 60s, right? Ray Nitschke. Then you had Dick Butkus, who literally revolutionized, who took it to the next level, if that could be taken up, that next level, right? You had him for the 60s and through part of the early 70s. Then by the time the mid-70s into that of the early part of the 80s, then that's when you would have that of the great Jack Lambert of those Steelers defense. When you think of those guys, you think of nastiness, mean, intimidating. Those are the linebackers and whatnot. That's what comes to mind when you see that. When I think of, you think of the NFL films with guys like those guys that I named, but definitely like Dick Butkus, who just took, that's what a middle linebacker was supposed to look like. That was it right there. 6'3", 245 pounds, could run, strong, rip your head off, intimidating, do whatever it takes to try to win, even though those Chicago Bears teams were some garbage back then. I don't know what Hallis was thinking about. The whole 9 yards and whatnot. Yeah, then one of my favorite, I even bring up guys like Chuck Bednarik. I forgot to even bring up guys like Chuck Concrete Charlie, Chuck Bednarik. And there's probably some others. But those are the guys that you sort of think about when you talk about that middle linebacker position and whatnot. By the time the mid-70s kind of rolled in, you had, you actually would have had the 3-4 started coming into play. And the Denver Broncos started using that in 75, 76, and then that became pretty much a fixture with them using that particular defense. Well, the catalyst of that defense was a linebacker by the name of Randy Gradishar, right? Randy Gradishar, not your classic middle linebacker. He was an inside linebacker because they ran 2 inside linebackers and 2 outside linebackers of that famed Orange Crush defense that helped them propel them to Super Bowl 12 and was one of the, and it's pretty much known as one of the best defenses for a season, or best defenses that for about 3 or 4 year stretch and whatnot. And Gradishar doesn't get the attention that he's supposed to get, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Gradishar, you have to really look at how he was. The word I think that can describe Gradishar, cerebral. That was his game. But this is a thing that unfortunately he played at the same time. His stats are favorable of that of Jack Lambert, of the top linebackers. And you start to get into that whole thing from that era, even that from Harry Carson. Because I've seen these different stats and different things that these guys broke down on Pro Football Journal. Shout out to them guys. Man has a wealth of information there. So much stuff to learn and to look at from the historical part of it. I love that website. But things that I never seen because he has the stats. Gradishar from 70, for him and Jack Lambert both came in the league at the same exact time. The only difference really with those guys' game is because Lambert was just snarl, intimidating in the whole 9 yards. Gradishar was just cerebral, did his job, and that was it. And that's the thing. And he played inside linebacker, not middle. And when you think of linebackers, you think of middle. Now, what Gradishar needs to get props for, because for about a 6 or 7 year stretch, that was his time. 2 of those years he was first team. Now, the first team middle or inside linebacker, they had to, because the 4-3 was the most prevalent defense that was out at that time. So your middle linebacker was guys like, whether it would be like the top middle linebackers at that era of time, especially that in the 70s, definitely in the mid-set from 74 during that time there. Guys like Willard Lanier was on their way out for the most part. You had Bill Bergey from the Philadelphia Eagles. You had Harry Carson later on of that for the Giants. Then you would have, of course, Jack Lambert. Buckets, his time was coming up because his knees was ravaged and all that. But it was always, you think of the middle linebacker, the guy in the middle, snarling and mean and nasty and intimidating. One of my favorite pictures, even though it's on my team in Super Bowl 10, Jack Lambert's making a tackle on Robert Newhouse, and he's just standing over him, he's standing over him and just looking at him. Or on NFL films, you take a look when he tackles Greg Pruitt, he pushes him in the face mask and pointing down at him and whatnot. I mean, that's what I grew up on. That's what I seen and stuff like that. Lambert, the one that said that quarterbacks need to be put in dresses. I'm like, if he would say that stuff nowadays, well, half the stuff that Lambert did would be, he wouldn't have no money because he'd be outlawed, as most of those guys would. He'd be fined to death. The thing that he said about the dresses, about all quarterbacks should wear dresses and all that kind of stuff. The Me Too movement would have came out. The LGBT movement would have came out. He probably would have got fined. Obviously, would have got fined. Would have probably had to sit out 5 or 6 games. I mean, shit, that's where we at nowadays. But be that as it may, that's what it was. What he did. Those guys dealt with intimidation. That was a lot of part of the game in the game. It always has been about intimidation, and sort of still is. But you have to do it in a certain kind of way. But it was about intimidation and let you know what time it was, let you know what it was. Gradishar didn't do that. But not only that, the 4-3 defense with your middle linebacker, he's 3-4. That's the thing, because if Lambert wasn't making, Lambert was always the middle linebacker that made the All-Pro first team. Gradishar had such a strong showing at a certain time. When you think about it, right? When you really think about the things that he did, right? The 3-4 defense was just getting used in the 70s. The Dolphins used it and went 17-0. Gradishar is probably the most dominant inside linebacker to play the game. See, his game, in my opinion, is like when I was talking to you guys about Ken Anderson basically being the godfather quarterback of the running the West Coast offense. Well, Randy Gradishar was the godfather of playing the inside linebacker in that 3-4 and being probably the most prominent and the OG of it, if you will. Now, you think about inside linebackers now, you think of like who get burnt. It started with Gradishar, in my opinion. Because some of the in the 70s, he has to be one of the best as far as position, pound for pound in his position. Just the inside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, he has to be top 5. You're gonna have to give way to guys like Ray Lewis and Junior Seau, who in my opinion probably the best inside linebackers, period. You know what I'm saying? The size, the speed, the tenacity, and they went side to side. They can cover. They could do anything you needed them to do in that inside linebacker position. And again, the 4-3 is known to sit up there and have everybody's basically covered. It's made for the middle linebacker to make tackles. Gradishar could have did that same exact thing. Probably was doing it at Penn State. I'm not scared. It was Penn State. I'm so stupid. Ohio State. But yeah, so it's like, that's the thing. And if you take a look at, so in the inside linebacker, the middle linebacker term, more prominent 4-3 defenses. So when the All-Pro team, in my opinion, came about and they had to pick linebackers, I just think that they went to the rep of the middle linebacker guys like Lambert. Lambert was like 6 or 7, 8 times like he was like All-Pro first team. And rightfully so. He had another edge that Gradishar didn't have. But Gradishar wasn't that type of linebacker. Obviously, he made tackles. The dude almost made 200 tackles in 1 year. He was in NFL MVP, defensive player of the year. He's All-Pro at least 7 times, 2 times first team, 5 times. He's always around the ball. Interception. He did everything that a lot of these guys. His stuff is favorable to Lambert. Was he better than Lambert? And I can't say nah. I won't say that he is better than Lambert. Lambert won. And that's, again, that's another criteria. You have to do some winning somewhere around here, right? But there's no reason why when you compile all the linebackers, when you compile all the linebackers together, be it outside, inside, middle, or whatever, you compile all the linebackers that has played this game in the 100 years that's coming up, Gradishar has to be one of the top 10 to 15 linebackers that ever played the game. Point blank. And inside, top 5, easily. Now, guys like Patrick Willis and whatnot, and probably some others I'm going to miss, I can't think of off the top of my head. Come on, man. I mean, you know, guys like that, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, you know, guys like Derrick Brooks, and I mean, them guys another level. But I'm saying that inside linebacker that them guys played and whatnot, it's like Gradishar put up the numbers. He did. If you want to compare him against Carson, it's no comparison, even though Carson played longer. But Carson got a Super Bowl. Lambert got 4. Gradishar went to 1. Those teams from 77 to 1983, by the time he finished up, because he's really started making his bones in 77, 12-2, and went to the Super Bowl. The next year they went 10-6, lost in the division round. 79, lost to the wild card, 10-6. 1980, 8-8, no playoffs. 81, 10-6, no playoffs. 1982, no playoffs. Went 2-7. 83, 9-7, his last year, wild card, lost the wild card game. So a lot of things didn't go right for them as a team. When you think of guys like Lambert was surrounded by nothing but Pro Bowl. You take a look at his front 4. Case closed. Probably considered one of the top front 4s that ever played. You can call Steel Curtain for nothing. And they kept him clean. They kept people off of him. And then, of course, you had Jack Ham playing the outside. And Andy Russell, who doesn't get enough credit, who doesn't get enough credit and whatnot. But for sure, much like Gradishar, I mean, it's just amazing to me that he's not even mentioned. But Pro Football Weekly, I think, here a few years ago, just sit up there and they say he's one of the top 10 linebackers that ever played. Now, the only thing I disagreed with them with, how do you have Dan Wilcox on that list and don't have Chuck Howley on that list? I'm always screaming about Chuck Howley. There's no way. But this is about Randy Gradishar. And like I said, Gradishar, guys like Lambert, initially, like I said, that's who you think of. You think of inside of middle of linebackers. Those guys, they personified that. Gradishar had the cerebral approach. Quiet, did his job, always around the ball, made big plays, made tons of tackles, right? Now, like I said, RG made a ton of tackles, never missed a game, was always around the ball. Defense he was on was always in the top categories. Linebackers from that era of the mid-70s and early 80s who are in the Hall of Fame, Gradishar is right up there with them. But the skinny, in my opinion, is when you name Lambert 4 Super Bowl wins in 6 years. Carson got a Super Bowl ring in his 11th year, and it took a while for him to even get in. So for Carson to get in, Carson never won a Defensive Player of the Year award. In fact, it's safe to say that if you put a list of the top 5 inside linebackers that ever played the game, Randy Gradishar would be right up there with them. When you do a list of top linebackers at the position, I say he's top 10 or top 15. He's top 15. So RG was the best inside linebacker in the 3-4, as a 3-4 that is ran today. To show that he isn't, you know what I'm saying, it's a shame that he's not in the Hall of Fame. There's no reason why he should not be in. He should be in the Hall of Fame easily. Easily. You know what I'm saying? Easily. And it's a shame that he's not, because, I mean, I consider him the godfather of the inside linebacker, and that made it popular to them guys that had to be extremely smart, fast, powerful, bone-jarring tackler, always around the ball and whatnot. And Gradishar, he exemplified that. And for the Hall and the writers and the voters not to put that in consideration, it's a shame that he's not in there. It's a shame. And like I said, the travesty of it all, and like I said, I have to still mention it on this. It's a shame that him and guys like Chuck Howley's not in the Hall of Fame, but yet not taking anything from Dan Wilcox or Chris Hamburger. They wasn't seeing Chuck Howley. That's, in my opinion, who started really making his bones in the latter part of his career in his 30s with those great Dallas defense, with the original Doomsday defense, and those championships, him in the MVP and stuff like that. So Gradishar is right up there. He's the godfather of inside linebackers. And I'll even go a step further and say, for the most part, same thing with a guy like Chuck Howley. It's a shame that both of those guys are not in the Hall of Fame. You know, y'all catch me. Hey, if y'all got any comments, leave them down below. Check me out on YouTube here, you know, page, subscribe to the page, hit the like button and whatnot. Got any questions, anything you want, any stuff you want to talk about, put it down there, man. We can start up a conversation. I'm going to start trying to be a little bit more consistent. Things are getting a little bit better. And, you know, we'll be back with you. And like I tell y'all guys, I say, you know, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. There is no greatest of all time or the GOAT as long as time's still going on. You guys have a good one.